I'll call this Committee of Adjustment meeting to order. First off, I'd like to read into the record before explaining the procedures of the meeting. Start off with the roll call, which we'll use to check the microphones of committee members. Thank you. So members, if you can give me a yes and a wave. We didn't hear you.
Are you calling us, or are we to just all say yes and wave?
Both, yeah. Donna?
Yes.
There we go. Okay, thank you. So tonight we have 4 applications we will be hearing, and the following will be the procedure for the meeting. Copies of notices have been sent to neighboring property owners and have also been posted on the City's Committee of Adjustment webpage. The first order of business will be for the committee members to disclose pecuniary interests and conflicts of interest with applications on tonight's agenda. A request will be made for any deferrals or withdrawals of applications on the agenda. The committee's acting secretary treasurer will read out each application on the agenda and provide a brief description and staff recommendation. The applicant or agent will be asked to introduce themselves and provide any additional information outlining the purpose of the application to the committee. Members of the committee will then have an opportunity to ask the applicant any questions that they may have. Members of the public have been encouraged to submit written correspondence regarding the applications, and staff have availed themselves in order to offer alternative submission methods if required. Following all comments presented, the applicants will be offered a closing statement if desired. The committee will then present a decision in the form of a motion. The motion will be discussed and voted upon. If the vote is tied, the motion will be defeated and a new motion will be made. Notice of decision will only be provided to those persons who have left their names with the Secretary Treasurer and Planning Division. Please contact David Schultz at planner@portcolborne.ca or leave a voicemail at 905-835-2901, extension 202, immediately following this meeting if you would like to receive a written notice of decision in order to be advised of any possible local planning appeal tribunal. You must request and be sent a copy of the committee's decision. Trusting we all understand this procedures to be followed, I would like to ask for any conflicts with tonight's application. Any conflicts, members? Member Beauregard?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have a conflict on 3 applications before us. Application A05-20-PC, A06-20-PC, B03-20-PC, all because I'm employed with Solid and Mahoney, who are solicitors for Rankin Construction.
Thank you. Anyone else? There being none. Any requests for deferrals, Mr. Secretary Treasurer?
I don't believe we have any today.
Thank you. Seeing none, before the Secretary Treasurer reads out the first application, I'm going to switch back to the agenda, and this is where I might not have it at my fingertips. It's chair script. Comments. Thank you. So we get people talking. So I'm going to go forward, members, with item 6. If there's going to be any other business tonight that members wanted to bring up before we go to the applications. Any other business? No. Approval of the minutes. June 9th, 2020 Committee of Adjustment meeting. Could I have a mover and seconder? Angie and Donna, all in favor, carried. And we will go back to the agenda. Mr. Secretary Treasurer, if you could begin with the first application.
Thank you. Charlotte, can you bring in the first applicant, please? There we go. Okay. So application number A03-20-PC in the matter of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13 as amended, and section 16.3C of City Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575-3018 as amended, and in the matter of the property legally known as Concession 2, part of Lot 12, Township of Humberstone, City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 3011 Second Concession Road, and located in the AR Agricultural Residential Zone. And in the matter of an application by the owners Kim and Neve Drayton for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575-3018 as amended under section 45 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13, so as to permit a 100 square meter addition to an existing dwelling, notwithstanding the following. 1. That a minimum front yard setback of 7.9 meters be permitted, whereas a minimum front yard setback of 10 meters is required. The applicant is seeking permission to construct an addition to their existing dwelling. Due to the location of the proposed covered front deck, the minor variance is required. Now I'll read the correspondence that have been received. I have correspondence from the Planning Division, the City of Port Colborne. Planning staff has reviewed the reference application and offer the following comments. Notice was circulated to the public on July 31st, 2020, and no written correspondence has been received at the time of this comment being prepared. I can confirm that we have not received any comments from the public yet. We have agency comments from the Port Colborne Engineering Department. No concerns with respect to municipal drains, and no further comments or issues regarding these applications. Comments from the Niagara Region Planning and Development Services. The lands are located within the rural area under the provincial policy statement, identified as a candidate area under the provincial agricultural system mapping, and designated rural area in the regional official plan. Provincial and regional policies generally permit expansions to existing uses within these designations. The PPS and ROP provide direction for the conservation of significant cultural heritage and archaeological resources. Specifically, Section 2.6.2 of the PPS and Policy 10C2113 of the Regional Official Plan state that development, including construction of buildings and structures requiring approval under the Planning Act, and site alteration, including grading, excavation, and placement of fill, that would change the landform of the natural vegetative characteristics of a site, are not permitted on lands containing archaeological resources or areas of archaeological potential, unless significant archaeological resources have been conserved. Based on provincial screening criteria, the property exhibits high potential for the discovery of archaeological resources due to the proximity within 300 meters to a watercourse to the northeast and location along two historic transportation routes, which are Second Concession and Shirk Road. Based on a review of aerial photography, it appears the areas of the proposed additions have not been subject to intensive or extensive ground disturbance as defined by the province. Therefore, regional staff require that a stage 1 and 2 archaeological assessment prepared by a licensed archaeologist be included as a condition of the minor variance application to ensure that the variance maintains the intent and purpose of the official plan policies pertaining to the conservation of the archaeological resources. The region has recommended condition that they would like to be included there. The City Port Colborne official plan designates the property as agricultural. The proposed addition to the existing dwelling meets the general intent and purpose of the official plan. The subject parcel is zoned agricultural residential. The proposed addition to the existing dwelling meets the general intent of the purpose of the zoning bylaw. Staff find that the application is minor in nature as the front yard setback is limited to a small portion of the front line, and it'll still be set back sufficiently from Second Concession Road. And staff finds this application to be desirable for the development of the site. So with that being said, we have comments from the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority and Niagara Region septic staff as well. So the NPCA does not have any objections to the application for minor variance. And the Niagara Region Private Sewage System Review They have reviewed the application. No records were found for the existing sewage system on the property. Based on the site plan submitted, the proposed addition would require a new sewage system to be installed to accommodate the increased sewage flows. Therefore, our department would have no objections to the proposed addition, provided a new sewage system is applied for and installed prior to the building permit being issued. Therefore, planning staff recommends minor variance application A03-20-PC be granted for the following reasons. 1, it is minor in nature as the sought variance is reasonable and a measured request. 2, it is appropriate for the development of the site since the proposed farm building will not result in any conflicting land uses. 3, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw as additions are permitted in the A zone. And 4, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan as residential uses are permitted in the agricultural designation. Subject to the following condition, that the owner submits a stage 1 and 2 archaeological assessment prepared by a licensed archaeologist to the Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Cultural Industries for review and approval with a copy provided to the Niagara region. The report must cover the areas of the property that will be disturbed as a result of the proposed works and must be accepted by the ministry to the satisfaction of the Niagara region prior to clearance of this condition. It should be noted that subsequent stage 3 or 4 studies may be recommended to mitigate any adverse impacts to the significant archaeological resources found on the site through preservation or resource removal and documentation. If the licensed archaeologist or ministry recommends/requires further stage 3 or 4 archaeological assessments, these reports must also be submitted to and accepted by the ministry to the satisfaction of the Niagara region. Note, no demolition, grading, or soil disturbances shall take place on the subject property prior to the issuance of a letter from the ministry confirming that all archaeological resource concerns have been mitigated and meet the licensing and resource conservation requirements. Signed, David Schultz, reviewed by Sherry Hansen, the Acting Director of Planning and Development. That concludes the correspondence.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. The applicant is here. Could you state your name and address, and do you have any comments to your application?
Was that for me?
Yes, you're the
I
applicant.
do have a little bit of a concern regarding
Could you state your name?
dig.
Could you state your name first?
Sorry?
Could you state your name and address?
Oh, sorry. Kim Drayton, 3011 2nd Concession Road, Fort Colborne, Ontario, L3K 5B3.
Thank you, Kim. Sure, go ahead.
Sorry, no problem.
No.
I do have a little bit of a concern regarding the archaeological dig, because the proposed issue that's at hand right now is a roof over top of our existing porch that is there right now. So which we're not actually harming the ground at all at that point until we do our addition off to the back end. So like the front part that's encroaching on the property line, that's the only issue would be the roof over top of the front porch. That's the only, so at that point, we're not actually digging. We're just putting a roof on an existing platform that's there already.
Sorry, any comments from the planning department on that?
Yes, so that condition is was a comment from the Niagara region. They look at those archaeological aspects of the property. So I know that the only part that did need the minor variance is the front porch, which had the reduction in the setback. The rest of the addition could be built with a regular building permit, and this wouldn't have come up. I did try to speak to them today, but they didn't get back to me in time. So I was wondering if they would maybe reconsider or take a look at other options for the applicant, just because it is an extensive review process and study to do. So I did do that, but I didn't hear anything back, unfortunately.
Any questions from members? Donna?
So, Kim, what I'm hearing is the porch is already there, and all that you're doing is going to be putting a roof on it. You're not going to be extending that porch. You're not going to be digging under it or replacing it. Nothing to do with the porch.
The porch is just being extended to the corner of the house. So we're building over top of what's there to the corner. So which, if I'm looking at it right now, it might be 2 to 3 feet to the corner of my home, of the home. And then I think it's going to be like 2 feet to the right.
So that would be the only
if
new.
you're looking at the house.
So that would be the only new place where there's any disturbance of the land underneath. Just that
That's
little
right.
bit around the corner.
And
okay.
The roof itself is not going over top of that 3 feet, like the 2 sides. The roof is only going over the existing part that's there right now.
Okay. Yeah, I think David needs to talk to the region perhaps, because I know those archaeological studies are expensive.
Right, exactly. That's what I was saying. I'm like, this doesn't really make much sense because we are keeping the roof line within the house that's here, and it's only going on top of the part that's already there right now, that it is existing.
David, could I ask, David, would they have done an on-site visit, David, or would that have just been from the prints that were sent to them?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Kalaliff. They usually review aerial photography, and they have certain mapping that isn't available to the public that show high vulnerable areas for archaeological potential. So from my experience, it doesn't matter. So if it was a building permit just on this property, it wouldn't necessarily go to the region for review, so they wouldn't address this. But as soon as there's a Planning Act application, that's where it gets triggered through their official plan. So that's the essence of it, I guess. They do review a lot of mapping and resources that they do have that aren't necessarily available to everybody.
Thank you.
Angie, did you have your hand up? Yeah, go ahead.
I do, thank you. Through you to David. David, what process would we use to put this matter on hold until such time as something can be worked out with the region? Because it doesn't feel right at all that that kind of expense should be seen just to make sure the a porch roof lines up with an existing porch. It just doesn't make sense to do that. So what process would we be using to do that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Demery. The committee could vote to adjourn the application, which I think it could delay it, certainly. There is the option of also rewording the condition so that perhaps the applicant could submit other documentation to the region to their satisfaction. So that it gives them time to review and look at the materials to see if this is a requirement or not. I would caution with removing it all the way together, just because that would put the region in a position where they can appeal it. So that's what I would have to offer there.
Okay, thank you, David. Again, through you, Chair, to Ms. Strayton, what would you prefer? Would an adjournment be something that you would want to do? Something that would just put this off for the time being while something was negotiated with the region?
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Like I said, there's no extreme reason to get an archaeological dig in my eyes. But if that's something that they want, then, but I do know that they come in from Toronto, and it's quite a big expense on top of doing, and in my eyes, it just seems unnecessary. But if it's necessary in their eyes, then, what has to be done will have to be done. But
okay, well, I see that Councillor Beauregard would like to, Member Beauregard would like to speak as well. So we'll wait for him to have his say, and then we can come back and figure out what to do for you.
Go ahead, Eric.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to David, our planner. How might we reword the condition so that we can show some type of proof if you will, that would be satisfactory to the region.
Planner?
That would be it. Either way, whatever. So I know in other instances that property owners have been able to submit documentation to show that there have been extensive disturbances in this area, and which leads to believe that the property wouldn't have any archaeological resources if they haven't been discovered already. But the wording itself would have to be from the committee.
Okay, I think I'm leaning towards Councillor Desmarais' perspective.
Question myself. Kim, are you doing the other improvement at the same time, or it's the porch you really need to, that you want to do right away?
No, everything's getting done at one time. We are looking into contractors right now at the moment. We're just waiting to hear back for, like, as far as bids and stuff like that.
So in terms of the total build, given the time of year, I would assume the rear addition is the main focus of your work, and you'd like to do the front at the same time.
Yes.
So so through you to the planner. So despite there is a application before us, if it was deferred, could the applicant still proceed with their building permit for the rest of the project?
So technically, yes. But now that the region has knowledge that this Planning Act application is before us, I don't believe they would like that now, because you'd be building over potential archaeological resources.
Oh, I see. So just because this is the subject of the setback, if there were archaeological items there, they would also assume they could be in the rear, or sorry, under the area of the addition.
That's correct, yeah. They look at the dwelling as a whole.
Right.
So wherever it's being added onto.
Do you have anything else, Kim? Otherwise, I'm going to ask the committee members for a recommendation.
No, just the simple fact that where we are going to be putting our addition on the back end of the house, or the side back, in front of that is our cistern, our septic bed, and in behind that is an old cistern that, in the process when we do it, we will remove that old cistern at that time. So there has been a dig in front of and in behind the proposed area that we are building on.
Right.
So that there again, the reason for an archaeological dig, I still don't see a legitimate reason, because of there being prior digs where cistern and septic on both ends of the proposed area where the addition is going.
Right. Okay, members? Any further questions or a recommendation? Member Beauregard?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I recommend that in application A03-20-PC be deferred to the next meeting until the Niagara region can comment and potentially revise the following condition, the condition that they've placed on this application.
Any other comments, additions to that? Could I get a seconder? Member Desmarais? Any further questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
There you go.
David, did you want to mention anything, what the process will be? So for Kim, will she be notified in time if it is indeed the next meeting? Because you may get a delay if you can't get an answer, right?
Yeah, depending on when the region provides their response, then we would hopefully schedule it for the next meeting.
Okay. Do you understand that, Kim? You okay with that?
Yeah, and I'm assuming that that would be September as
What, 11th? Is it
The second Tuesday of
September?
September, yes.
Second
Okay.
Tuesday of September. But you'll get notified by David ahead of time if he has a resolution?
Okay, all right.
Okay.
And does the notice still have to stay up on the yard?
Not anymore, but you will be getting a second one for the next meeting.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
We go forward with the second application, Mr. Secretary Treasurer.
Yes. 1 second here, please. Sorry, just 1 second here. All good? So application A04-20-PC, in the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990, CP 13 as amended, and section 11.3 C, D, and G of the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575-3018 as amended, and in the matter of the property legally known as Plan 48, Lot 13, Township of Humberstone, City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 3571 Fire Lane 12, and located in the LR Lakeshore Residential Zone and Hazard Zone. And in the matter of an application by the agent Sean Sider for the owners Karen Zimmer and William Armitage for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575-3018 as amended under section 45 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP 13, so as to permit the demolition and rebuild of a 273 square meter dwelling, notwithstanding the following. 1, that a minimum front yard setback of 9.65 meters be permitted, whereas a minimum front yard setback of 10 meters is required. 2, that a minimum interior side yard setback of 1.2 meters be permitted, where a minimum interior side yard setback of 3 meters is required. And 3, that a maximum lot coverage of 19% be permitted, whereas a maximum lot coverage of 15% is required. The applicant is seeking permission to demolish and rebuild an existing dwelling and garage on the property known as 3571 Fire Lane 12. Due to the proposed lot coverage as well as front and side yard setbacks, the minor variance is required. I'll read the correspondence. From the Planning Division, planning staff has reviewed the application and offer the following for the hearing. Notice was circulated to the public on July 31st, 2020, and no written correspondence has been received at the time of this meeting. Notice was circulated to the agencies on July 31st, 2020, and we have received comments from a few agencies here. Engineering department, no concerns with respect to municipal drains, no further comments or issues. The Niagara Region Planning and Development Services. The region, the lands are located within the rural area under the provincial policy statement and designated rural area in the regional official plan. Provincial and regional policies generally permit alterations / expansions to the existing uses within these designations. The PPS and regional official plan provide direction for the conservation of significant cultural heritage and archaeological resources. So recognizing that no archaeological screening or survey, regardless of its intensity, can entirely negate the possibility of deeply buried archaeological materials. Regional staff recommends the inclusion of the standard archaeological clauses in any contracts, agreements, or plans for the contractors completing the work relating to deeply buried archaeological materials that may be encountered during grading or construction activities. They have 2 warning clauses in there. They do have a condition for that a sediment and erosion control plan is completed by a qualified professional and is submitted to the region for review and approval. We also have comments from the Niagara Regional Conservation Authority. The NPCA concludes that they have no objections to the application for minor variance, subject to the following conditions. 1, that the site plan is subject to further review. A, the covered deck is removed from the design entirely or moved to an area outside of the stable slope allowance. B, a rationale or practical reason why the proposed development cannot be placed outside of the erosion, flood, and stable slope allowance is provided to the satisfaction of the NPCA. The NPCA will require that the location of the stable top of slope can be indicated on the site plan drawings. No work shall encroach past this line. If the applicant wishes, they may commission a geotechnical report to better identify the stable top of slope. E, adequate shore protection is in place to the satisfaction of the NPCA. Photos can be provided or NPCA staff can conduct a site visit. F, a detailed site plan showing means are provided to mitigate the wave uprush hazard. Example, shutters installed on windows. And G, means are provided to mitigate the 100-year flood hazard. Example, no openings constructed within the structure below the regulatory 100-year flood elevation, and safe access and egress is provided. So, with that being said, planning staff has revised the recommendation from the original report in the form of a memo. So planning staff recommends that minor variance application A04-20 be approved for the following reasons. 1, it is minor in nature as the reduction in setbacks and increase in lot coverage are minimal. 2, it is appropriate for the development of the site since the proposed construction is located in a suitable location on the site and is desirable for the property. 3, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as residential uses are permitted in the Lakeshore residential zone. And 4, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as residential uses are permitted in areas with the rural designation. Subject to the following conditions. 1, that the site plan is subject to further review with the requirements that were listed in the previous letter from the NPCA. 2, that a sediment and erosion control plan is completed by a qualified professional and is submitted to the Niagara region for review and approval. And 3, that a detailed sewage system design is submitted to the satisfaction of the Niagara region to confirm a Class 4 sewage system can be installed to service the proposed dwelling. And that concludes the correspondence, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Planner. Sean, welcome. Do you have any comments, sir?
No comments, I guess. The only thing I'd say is I've looked at the conditions and with my customer, and they're willing to accept the conditions from the region and the NPCA. And I already did submit a sewage plan to the region for their review.
Good. Questions from members? Any? No? I have none. Can we entertain a motion? Someone take their turn doing the recommendation? Not all at once. Eric, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Application A04-20-PC in the matter of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13, as amended in Section 11.3C, D, and G of the City of Port Colborne Zoning Bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended, and in the matter of the property legally known as Plan 48, Lot 13, Township of Humberstone, City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 3571 Fire Lane 12, and located in the LR Lakeshore Residential and H Hazard Zone, and in the matter of an application by the agent Sean Sider for the owners Karen Zimmer and William Armitage for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended under Section 45 of the Planning Act RSO 1990, Chapter P13, so as to permit the demolition and rebuild of a 273-meter square dwelling, notwithstanding the following. 1, that a minimum front yard setback of 9.65 meters be permitted, whereas a minimum front yard setback of 10 meters is required. 2, that a minimum interior side yard setback of 1.2 meters be permitted, whereas a minimum interior side yard setback of 3 meters is required. 3, that a maximum lot coverage of 19% be permitted, whereas a maximum lot coverage of 15% is required. Explanatory relief from the zoning bylaw. The applicant is seeking permission to demolish or rebuild the existing dwelling and garage on the property known as 3571 Fire Lane 12 due to the proposed lot coverage as well as front and side yard setbacks. The minor variance is required. That minor variance application 804-20 PC be approved for the following reasons. 1, it's minor in nature, as the reduction in setbacks and increase in lot coverage are minimal. 2, appropriate for development of the site since the proposed construction is located in a suitable location on the site and is desirable for the property. 3, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw as residential uses are permitted in the Lakeshore residential zone. 4, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan as residential uses are permitted in areas with rural designation. Subject to the following conditions. 1, the site plan is subject to further review by the MPCA. A, the cover deck is removed from the design entirely or moved to an area outside of the stable slope allowance. B, a rationale or practical reason why the proposed development cannot be placed outside of the erosion, flood, and stable slope allowance is provided to the satisfaction of the MPCA. C, the MPCA will require that the location of the stable top of slope be indicated on the site plan drawings. No work shall encroach past this line. D, if the applicant wishes, they may commission a geotechnical report to be better identify the stable slope top of the slope. E, adequate shore protection is in place to the satisfaction of the MPCA. Photos can be provided or MPCA staff can conduct a site visit. F, a detailed site plan showing means are provided to mitigate the wave uprush hazard, i.e. shutters are installed in the windows, close bracket. G, means are provided to mitigate the 100-year flood hazard, bracket, i.e. no openings are constructed within the structure below the regulatory 100-year flood elevation and safe access / egress is provided, close bracket. 2, that a sediment and erosion control plan is completed by a qualified professional and is submitted to the Niagara region for review and approval. 3, that a detailed sewage system design is submitted to the satisfaction of the Niagara region to confirm a Class 4 sewage system can be installed to service the proposed dwelling.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder? Member Desmarais, all in favor? That would be carried. Thank you, Mr. Sider.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
For the record, I will be leaving.
Thank you, Eric. Next application, Mr. Secretary.
Just wait till he gets in here. Okay. So application number A04-20-PC. In the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990, CP 13 as amended in sections 3.11, 1A, 3.7B, 23.5H, 23.6A, and 22.24C II of City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575/3018 as amended. And in the matter of the property legally known as lots 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 on the west side of West Street, part of lot 1 on the south side of Victoria Street, part of lot 1 on the north side of Adelaide Street, and part of West Street plans 987, 988, and 989, City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 14-18 Victoria Street, located in the downtown commercial zone. and in the matter of an application by the agent Jerry Cheisler on behalf of the owner Southport Condos Incorporated for relief from the provisions of the zoning bylaw 6575/3018 as amended under Section 45 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13, to permit a 9-story commercial building with accessory dwelling units above, notwithstanding the following. 1, to permit a landscape buffer width of 1.4 meters abutting the lot line adjacent to Adelaide Street, and 2.9 meters abutting the lot line adjacent to West Street, whereas the bylaw requires 6 meters. 2, to permit a landscape buffer width of 3 meters abutting a lot line that is adjacent to a residential, institutional, or public and park zone, whereas the bylaw requires 4 meters. 3, to permit a driveway widths of a minimum of 6.85 meters, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum driveway width of 7.5 meters. 4, to permit a maximum building height of 31 meters, whereas the bylaw permits a maximum building height of 26 meters. 5, to permit accessory dwelling units on the ground floor, whereas the bylaw only permits accessory dwelling units above commercial uses. 6, to permit an outdoor commercial patio that is not physically separated by a building from another lot in a residential zone to be located at least 50 meters from a residential zone, whereas the bylaw requires that an outdoor commercial patio be located at least 75 meters from a residential zone. The applicant is requesting permission to reduce the minimum driveway width, landscape buffer requirements, and increase the building height in order to recognize the proposed location of a 9-story building. Given the driveway width, landscape buffer, building heights, and other requirements, the minor variances must be approved in order to permit the proposed building. For this one, we have correspondence from the Planning Division. The planning staff have reviewed the application and offer the following comments. Notice was circulated on July 28th to the members of the public, and no written correspondence has been received. Notice was circulated on July 28th, and the following correspondence has been received from the City of Port Colborne Fire Department. The fire department cautions that changes to the driveway entrance widths may affect the site plan requirements for fire department access routes. Port Colborne Engineering has no concerns. The Niagara Region Planning and Development Services, based on a review of aerial photography and Google Street View, portions of the land identified as Part 2 were last used for commercial/industrial purposes in accordance with Ontario Regulation 153/04 and 511/09 as amended by Ontario Regulation 407/19. A record of site condition must be filed with the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change's Brownfield Environmental Site Registry prior to any change in land use. With respect to file A05-20 and the requested variance to permit dwelling units on the main floor, the requirements of the Environmental Protection Act may impact this proposal. Regional staff understand that the proposed development on Part 2 will be subject to future Planning Act applications, including site plan control, and not for information that a Phase 1 and 2 environmental site assessment prepared by a qualified professional in conformity with the requirements under the Environmental Protection Act and associated regulations will be required as part of any future Planning Act applications for Part 2. The requirement for the RSC can be addressed through future planning processes. So the Planning Division states that the subject parcel is located in the downtown commercial zone. The subject property is merged with the remaining property of the condo. So the larger property had minor variances previously approved, but now that they acquired more property, they required the minor variances for this property as well. So staff recommends that minor variance application A05-20-PC be approved for the following reasons. 1, it is minor in nature as the proposed commercial building with accessory dwelling units will not result in adverse impacts to neighboring properties. 2, it is appropriate for the development of the site since the proposed commercial buildings with accessory dwelling units is located in an appropriate area on site. 3, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw as the proposed commercial building with accessory dwelling units is permitted in the downtown commercial zone. 4, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as mixed-use commercial and residential buildings are permitted in areas with the downtown commercial designation. Signed, David Schultz, reviewed by Sherry Hansen, the Acting Director of Planning and Development. That concludes the correspondence for that application, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Planner. Jerry, do you have any comments on the variance?
Hello, thank you. No, I just, we concur with the staff report, and I just wanted to make a note, I guess, for background purposes. So the reason why the additional property was acquired was to basically round out the parking area of the proposed condo building. So it allows for a little bit of more efficient parking area. So only really 2 of these variances are actually required for this portion of the property, which is the landscape buffer for the parking lot and the driveway width variance. But through our discussions with staff, it was agreed that it's better to reflect all of the variances that were previously approved for the balance of the land, in order to ensure there's a consistent set of variances for the entire condo property. And I think that's about it. I just want to provide that bit of clarification there.
Great. Any questions from members? Nope. No? We're going to do these together. We should still vote on this one separately.
This one's separate.
The other ones, okay, great. Could I have a recommendation from one of the members? Donna? Thank you.
I recommend that this be accepted as proposed for the minor variance. Now we're doing them all, we're not doing them all together, we're just doing the first one, A0520PC.
So we're doing this one separate, yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I couldn't hear you.
We're doing this one separate, yes. I thought
Okay.
we'd be doing them together, but it may be the next 2. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are you going to be reading that separate one?
I'm going to ask you for the page number. I'm looking at it on my phone. I'm just
Sure.
trying to, it's so tiny.
Yeah. Do you know?
What page would it be?
I sent that one by email today.
Oh, I looked at those ones and I didn't think I saw it, David. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
It was an individual one? It was the package with the 6 in it?
Yes, or I do have them separate as well, if you just find the one with A05.
A05, got it. Okay, now I just have to read it. Okay. And in the matter of an my phone's acting up. Application by the agent Jerry Sisler on behalf of the owner, Southbrook Condos Incorporated, for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 657530-18 as amended under section 45 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, page 13, to permit a 9-story condominium building with accessory dwelling units above, notwithstanding the following. 1, to permit a minimum landscape buffer with a width of 1.4 meters abutting the lot line adjacent to Adelaide Street and 2.9 meters abutting the lot line adjacent to West Street, whereas the bylaw requires 6 meters. To permit a landscape, number 2, to permit a landscape buffer width of 3 meters abutting a lot line that is adjacent to the residential, is institutional or public, and oh my gosh. So there's a buffer park zone, whereas the bylaw requires 4 meters. Number 3, to permit driveway widths of a minimum of 6.85 meters, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum driveway width of 7.5 meters. And number 4, to permit a maximum building height of 31 meters, whereas the bylaw permits a maximum building height of 26 meters. Number 5, to permit accessory dwelling units on the ground floor, whereas the bylaw only permits accessory dwellings above commercial uses. Number 6, to permit an outdoor commercial patio that is not physically separated by a building from another lot in a residential zone to be located at least 50 meters from a residential zone, whereas the bylaw requires that an outdoor commercial patio be located at least 70 meters from a residential zone. Explanatory relief from the zoning bylaw. The applicant is requesting permission. Am I reading the right piece here? Yes.
Yeah.
Am I right on that, Mr. Chair?
Yes,
To
you
reduce
are.
the minimum.
Yes.
Okay. To reduce the minimum driveway width and landscape buffer requirements, as well as increase the building height requirements in order to recognize the proposed location of a nine-story building with commercial uses on the main floor and residential dwellings on the 1st through 9th floor. Given the driveway width, landscape buffer, building height requirements, and restrictions on the location of accessory dwellings and outdoor commercial patios, the minor variances must be approved in order to permit the proposed building. That minor variance application A05-20 PC be approved for the following reasons. Minor in nature, as a proposed commercial building with accessory dwellings units will not result in adverse impacts to the neighboring properties. Number 2, appropriate for development of the site, since the proposed commercial building with accessory dwelling units is located in an appropriate area on site. Number 3, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, and the proposed commercial building with accessory dwelling units is permitted in the downtown commercial zone. And number 4, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as mixed use commercial and residential buildings are permitted in areas with the downtown commercial designation.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please? Member Demery. All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you, members. Mr. Secretary Treasurer, the next application for minor variance.
Just to clarify, I'll be reading these ones back to back, just because they're the same property. So for application A06-20-PC, for the property legally known as lots 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 on the west side of West Street, part of lot 1 on the south side of Victoria Street, part of lot 1 on the north side of Adelaide Street, and part of West Street plans 987, 988, and 989, City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 14-18 Victoria Street, located in the R4 4th Density Residential Zone. And in the matter of an application by the agent Jerry Cheisler on behalf of the owner Southport Condos for relief from the provisions of the zoning bylaw as amended under Section 45 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13, so as to permit a severance of a lot for a single detached dwelling, notwithstanding the following. 1, to permit a minimum lot area for a detached dwelling of 296 square meters, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum lot area of 500 square meters. And 2, to permit a minimum lot frontage for a detached dwelling of 12.8 meters, where the bylaw requires a minimum lot frontage of 15 meters. The applicant is requesting permission to sever the lot for a future detached dwelling with the reduced lot frontage and lot area. Given the reduced lot frontage and lot area, the minor variance is required to permit the severance. Now I'll read the severance application. In the matter of the property legally known as lots 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 of the west side of West Street, part of lot 1 on the south side of Victoria Street, part of lot 1 on the north side of Adelaide Street, and part of West Street plans 987, 988, and 989, City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 14-18 Victoria Street, and in the matter of an application by the agent Jerry Cheisler for the owner of Southport Condos for a severance under Section 53(1) of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13, so as to permit the conveyance of Part 1 having a lot frontage of 12.8 meters with a total lot area of 296 square meters for a future single detached dwelling. Part 2 will retain a lot frontage of 107.2 square meters on West Street with a total lot area of 5,634 square meters for a future 9-story commercial building with accessory dwelling units above. We have correspondence from the Planning Division for this application. Planning staff has reviewed the referenced application and offer the following comments for the hearing. Notice was circulated on July 28th and no written correspondence has been received from the public. Notice was also circulated on July 28th to the agencies and the following correspondence has been received. The engineering department has no comments or issues regarding these applications. The Niagara Region Planning and Development Services have the same comments as the previous application, just cautioning that a record of site condition will be required for the condo building eventually through the later planning process. Staff has no concerns with the minor variance or consent to sever the property. The variances being sought to facilitate the severance will not impact neighboring properties and will allow for the future development of the site. Therefore, staff conclude that this consent and minor variance application is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. Additionally, staff are of the opinion that the minor variance application is considered minor in nature and desirable and appropriate for the development of the site. Planning staff recommends consent application B03-20PC be granted, subject to the following conditions. 1. That Committee of Adjustment application A06-20 be granted. 2. That the owner submit a letter to the city indicating that he or she is aware of the requirements of bylaw 4748/130/05, which requires the collection of the parkland dedication fee at the time of the building permit application, based on the value of the property the day before issuance of the permit, and that he or she will advise any future purchasers of this requirement. 3. That the applicant provides the Secretary Treasurer with the deeds and triplicate for conveyance of the subject parcel or a registerable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a copy of the deposited reference plan in both paper and electronic format, if applicable, for use in the issuance of certificate of final consent. That a final certification fee of $208 be payable to the City of Port Colborne and submitted to the Secretary Treasurer. And for the following reasons, the application conforms to the policies of the Regional Official Plan, City of Port Colborne Official Plan, and will also comply with the provisions of the zoning bylaw 6575-3018 as amended. And 2, this decision is rendered having regard to the provisions of subsection 5124 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP13. And planning staff recommends that minor variance application A06-20-PC be granted for the following reasons. 1, it is minor in nature as the reduction in lot size to 296 square meters will not impact the usability of the future use. 2, it is appropriate for the development of the site as the lot size will still be sufficient for a future dwelling. 3, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw as residential uses are permitted in the R4 zone. And 4, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan as consents and residential uses are permitted in the downtown commercial designation. Subject to the following condition, that Committee of Adjustment application B03-20-PC be granted. Signed, David Schultz, planner, reviewed by Sherry Hansen, acting Director of Planning and Development. That concludes the correspondence for that.
Thank you, David. Mr. Tischler, any comments on either of those?
No, so we've reviewed the staff report and we concur with the conclusions and we agree with the conditions as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Member, please have a recommendation. Angie, thank you. Do those in block?
Okay, and now obviously I would recommend that they be approved as presented. Do I read the resolution for A6 and then B3, or is it just one of them?
We should read both. I know it's hassle, but just to be
That's
safe.
right. Okay, so A6 will go first. Okay, in the matter of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 P13 as amended, and section 8.8 of the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575-30-18 as amended, and in the matter of the property legally known as lots 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 of the west side of West Street, part of lot 1 on the south side of Victoria Street, part of lot 1 on the north side of Adelaide Street, and part of West Street, plans 987, 988, and 989, City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 14 to 18 Victoria Street, located in the R4 fourth density residential zone. And in the matter of the planning of the application by Agent Jerry Tisler on behalf of owner Southport Condos Inc. for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575-30-18 as amended under section 45 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 P13, so as to permit a severance of a lot for a future single detached dwelling, notwithstanding the following. 1, to permit a minimum lot area for a detached dwelling of 296 square meters, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum lot area of 500 square meters. And 2, to permit a minimum lot frontage for a dwelling, for a detached dwelling of 12.8 meters, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum lot frontage of 15 meters. Explanatory relief from the zoning bylaw. The applicant is requesting permission to sever a lot for a future detached dwelling with a reduced lot frontage and lot area. Given the reduced frontage and lot area, the minor variance is required to permit the severance. That the minor variance application A620 PC be approved for the following reasons. 1, minor in nature, as a reduction in lot size to 296 square meters will not impact the usability of the future use. 2, appropriate for the development of the site, as the lot size will be sufficient for a future dwelling. 3, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as residential uses are permitted in the R zone, in the R4 zone. 4, desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as consents and residential uses are permitted in the downtown commercial designation. Subject to the following conditions. 1, that the Committee of Adjustment application B320 PC be granted. No public comments were received. Okay. So that is that one. Now I move over to, that was
Remember,
A6.
Angie?
Yes?
The Secretary is telling me we should vote. We should now vote on that one separately.
Oh, okay.
Thank
All right.
you. Seconder, Donna? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Angie.
Okay, so I would now move that B03-20-PC, application B03-20-PC, be approved as presented. In the matter of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter 13, or sorry, Chapter P13, page 13, Section 53(1), and in the matter of the property legally known as lots 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 on the west side of West Street, part of lot 1 on the south side of Victoria Street, part of lot 1 on the north side of Adelaide Street, and part of West Street plans 987, 988, and 989, City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 14 to 18 Victoria Street. And in the matter of an application by the agent Jerry Tisler for owner Southport Condos Inc. for a severance under Section 53(1) of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 P13, so as to permit the conveyance of Part 1 having a lot frontage of 12.8 meters, 42 feet, with a total lot area of 296 meters squared, 3,186 square feet, for a future single detached dwelling. Part 2 will retain a lot frontage of 107.2 meters, which is 352 feet, on West Street, with a total area of 5,634 square meters, 1.4 acres, for a future 9-story commercial building with accessory dwelling units above. That consent for application P03-20-PC be granted, subject to the following conditions. 1, that the Committee of Adjustment application A06-20-PC be granted. 2, that the owner submit a letter to the city indicating that he or she is aware of the requirements of bylaw 4748-130-05, which requires the collection of the parkland dedication fee at the time of the building permit application based on the value of the property the day before issuance of the permit, and that he or she will advise any future purchasers of this requirement. 3, that the applicant provides the Secretary Treasurer with the deeds in triplicate for conveyance of the subject parcel or registerable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a copy of the deposited reference plan in both paper and electronic format, if applicable, for use in the issuance of the certificate of consent. 4, that the final certification fee of $208 payable to the City of Port Colborne is submitted to the Secretary Treasurer. Okay, for the following reasons. 1, the application conforms to the policies of the Regional Official Plan, City of Port Colborne Official Plan, and will also comply with the provisions of the zoning bylaw 6575-30-18 as amended. 2, this decision is rendered having regard to the provisions of subsection 5124 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 P13. No public comments were received.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Donna? Great. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
All that.
At this point, can I have a motion for adjournment? Donna, Angie, all in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Hey, we did it.